TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to another TellyCast. We're doing something a little different this week. I recently produced and moderated a panel for PACT, the UK's Producers Alliance for Cinema and TV. The event was called Beyond the Box Content 3.0 and designed to provide insights into digital content opportunities for TV producers. It was recorded at the Everyman Cinema in London's King's Cross last week, and we're playing back the panel recording for this week's show. The sound isn't perfect, but hopefully you'll pick up some interesting insights from a brilliant panel lineup representing some of the UK's leading digital-first creators and studios. I hope you enjoy it.
One of the things I always get asked, and get asked most often by TV producers focused on the more traditional TV production, is how do you make money in digital? And that's really what we're going to try and get down to in this session. And I'm joined by a brilliant panel of leading content creators and producers who've been at the coalface of social first production, distribution and monetization. These are the guys that are building successful next generation content businesses. So let's try and discover the secrets of their success. I'm going to go to Brandon first. Brandon Baum is better known to over 9.5 million followers on social platforms as Brandon B. Brandon is one of the UK's most successful content creators, famous for his amazing VFX clips that he produces from his Studio B headquarters in North London. Next to me is Melissa Chapman, co-CEO of British digital media company Jungle Creations. Jungle operates themed channels including VT, Twisted, Lovimals, Level Fitness, Craft Factory and 4-9. Jungle's based also in London and in New York City. Melissa has been honoured by several industry bodies, including being featured in Ad Age's Women to Watch, Management Today's 35 Under 35, The Drum's 50 Under 30, and being named as Publishing Executive of the Year at the DigiDay Media Awards in Europe. Now, Taf Makopa is Managing Director of Wall of Entertainment. Taf leads Wall of Entertainment with co-founders Joyvan Wade and Purcell Ascot. The company has 4 divisions: comedy, productions, talent and music, specialising in development, production, content development, strategy, social media and talent management. Finally, we have Matt Campion, founder and creative director of Spirit Studios, next generation media business. Spirit Studios is a purpose-driven content business on a mission to effect change through entertainment and storytelling. Spirit operates a portfolio of digital brands and social content channels, including I Am Whole and global conservation brand Lion Whisperer TV. And this Channel 4 Indie Growth Fund invested in Spirit in 2021. So 4 very different businesses and business models. Brandon, let's start with you. First of all, tell us about your career to date. Studio B's been going for about 2 years, I believe, but take us through your content creation journey up to this point.
So I started this content creation journey probably when I was around 12. I got addicted to this thing called entertaining people, and I couldn't do anything but. And I got this fascination for creating visual effect content, so I sort of spent every spare moment I could learning and perfecting the craft of creating VFX videos. Eventually, I managed to get myself a job at a TV production company. I spent 4 years there doing the classic, starting as a runner, PA, tech assist, cam assist, until eventually I was shooting these awesome TVCs, getting flown all around the world. But even at the height of my TV space, it just wasn't hitting the spot for me. It wasn't where I wanted to be. And I was obsessed with this thing called social. And this was back in 2018, so it was still really in its infancy. So I started working with a bunch of different social creators, starting to become their director and producer for all their content, helped them grow their channels until I teamed up with 2 guys called Woody and Kleine, and together we built their profiles to over 25 million. And then COVID happened and it kind of ruined everything. So I was like, you know what? Instead of sitting my ass and doing nothing at home, why don't I start creating content on my own pages? Made a pact with myself, day one of lockdown, I'd upload a new video every single day until the lockdown was over, until I finally left with over 1 million followers. At that point, I had this realization that I'd had such a depth of knowledge of both the TV space, working within a production company, and also the social media industry. And I thought, why not combine those 2 babies into one and build Studio B, which is a digital-first production house.
take us into your business model a little bit? You know, give us an indication of where the money's coming from and how that is split across the work that you do on social and also the Studio B business. Give us a bit of a breakdown.
So I'd say we are probably 90-10 diverse as far as working with brands and then revenue that comes in from platforms. Unfortunately, we started to try and build the model of platform direct, but unfortunately, it didn't get us anywhere near what we needed to pull off those big production pieces that we were creating. You know, we're a team of 15, we have our own 5,000 square foot studio, and unfortunately, you can't pull off that sort of production with just the revenue that was coming in from YouTube and the terrible TikTok fund and all the other places where you can try and start racking up some revenue. So at that point, we started working with a bunch of brands and using brands as a way to tap into larger budgets so we could create bigger pieces of content. So we'd team up with brands, we'd have this huge stockpile of ideas that we're obsessed with, but just hadn't had the opportunity to bring them to life because we hadn't found the right partner who could launch this video. And then we'd pitch them, we'd sell them the incredible ideas that we have and show them how incredible our history was of past videos that we'd created, and then sort of sold the dream of what we could do if partnered together. Luckily, that has now built onto this incredible sort of pathway of retaining brands and working with them constantly, and every time there's a new campaign brief coming in, us being sort of the first in there to be able to pitch our new and big ideas to them. So it's been a great sort of like chicken and egg situation where the more we've created bigger and better pieces, the more brands have wanted to work with us. So for us, it did have to start on the organic side first, proving ourselves that we can create this awesome content, and then being able to say, hey brands, look what we're doing. Imagine if we put your brand logo and your brand messaging attached to it.
So if a brand comes to you and they're obviously looking to your audience to clearly watch your videos, but are you also putting the video that you create for them on their channels as well? How does that content split work when you work with a brand?
So we have two separate divisions within Studio B. The first arm is the Brand & B. So Brand & B is the channel with 9.5 million followers with my name on, and then the other half is Studio B. And Studio B works as a production agency, so we work with brands creating tailored content for them. It'll be short form, sometimes long form content for them, using what we know about creating viral content. So coming to us, tapping into our viral knowledge set and creating content without the Brand & B brand attached to it, just so they can run it across on their own socials. And that could be anything from helping a brand execute on running their socials to creating just individual assets that they'll post across their pages.
Melissa, moving on to Jungle. Hello.
Hello.
So tell us about your backstory. You've come to the digital first sector really through the publishing route, haven't you? The more journalism route. Take us through that evolution.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about Jungle for those who aren't familiar. We call ourselves a social publisher and agency. Really, we see ourselves as a social broadcaster and agency, but I think quite confusing to throw that terminology out currently, although I think there's room for change there. We started building a number of owned brands that initially we launched on Facebook back in 2015. The model then was to drive our eyeballs that we were generating on our Facebook pages to a website where we were monetizing them through written editorial before kind of video was a thing so much on these platforms. We saw the shift on the platforms back then moving towards video, so we put video at the centre of our business, and how we tell stories changed from being written into visual. Over the course of kind of the next couple of years, we built up 150 million followers and moved outside of Facebook onto all platforms. And we kind of looked at the magazine model where you'd look at the shelf, you'd have your kind of your Horse and Hound, you'd have your food magazine, your crafting magazine, and said, okay, what does that look like in a new gen social world? So we launched our vertical brand. So Twisted is our food and drink brand, VT is entertainment, Craft Factory is craft and home, etc. And we started creating original content in-house to build audiences in those kind of interest categories. We then started monetizing those audiences through platform revenue. So I do slightly conflict your point that it's not possible to get to profitability through creating your own content and platform revenues, because we scaled that tremendously, albeit we had to start very cost effective with our video production. And I mean, my sizzle's about to show in a minute, and it's definitely not as good as yours, Sweeney, to work with our sizzle. So that was kind of the start of the journey and our initial revenue stream. Once we had kind of that such influence on these social platforms and with these audiences, because we had global audiences as well, we started working with brands to integrate them, which was kind of like product placement, custom content, branded content, where they, on Twisted, we may work with Oreos to create 10 recipe videos where they'd kind of get that production, but they'd also get the distribution and the reach of our audience as well, which meant we could charge not just production agency, but also distribution and media as well. And then in 2019, we still felt we should have more bang for our buck for kind of the value that we could drive. So we launched our agency business, which is The Wild. The Wild is where we say, okay, what are we experts at? We know how to make social content. We know how to scale it. We know how to build communities because of our massive following. And with Twisted, we've got restaurants. We launched a beer in the Co-op last year. So we knew really how to not just have an eyeball that looks at you for 3 seconds and moves away, but actually how do you generate community that is tangible and meaningful. So we work with the likes of Major League Baseball, Pucker Pies, where we run Major League Baseball's YouTube content out of Europe. Pucker Pies, we run all of their socials, and basically it's saying, lifting what we're good at on the publishing business and offering services for brands and clients in that world. And then finally, we launched last year Jungle Creators, which is a little bit similar to your model, but the way we view our channels now is their channels, their programs, and we operate as programs, so we develop formats. And just like in the TV world, creators and talent and celebrities are key to many formats, not all formats. So we launched Jungle Creators where we could start integrating social talent and also traditional talent into our own channels. And that is by and large not with brands, but also we're now making an influence marketing proposition where we connect those creators to brands as well. And that's kind of where we're at today. So a bit of an octopus, but started with audience and the ability to create content.
So obviously you produce fantastic content, you know how to work and build communities, you're launching real world consumer brands. Give us an idea of the scale of your business then, how many people are there, what sort of revenue we're talking about, and also how's that revenue split across the business?
So we're about 150 people now. In terms of our revenue split, it's kind of shifting over time for sure. And the ambition of any business is diversify, especially when you're very dependent on platforms, because you're renting land, you're building a house on the sand, and it's quite a volatile space. But still, I think our publishing business probably is about 70% of our revenues, and then 30% is coming from brand work and clients. I think the ambition for the business over the next 3 years is to try and make that 50-50, and certainly it's kind of where we're focusing our strategy as we move forward. But we absolutely don't believe that kind of we need the brand revenues to sustain the model. But once you have all of those eyeballs and the ability to create that content, it's kind of like, why wouldn't you? For sure. And then, we're really excited about the creative part of our business as a strong growth area for the future as well. And in terms of production companies and working with production companies, one thing that we're really excited about is the ability, production companies are sat on tremendous content, and the way people are viewing content on social is shifting. They're prepared to watch for longer. They're prepared to watch higher quality content, whereas back in the day, just cat videos was what was going to go viral for you. And how can we partner with and work with production companies, one, to make money from the content that they've got that's kind of maybe building dust and collecting dust in the coffers, but also to generate new formats together. And I do believe it's not quite been cracked yet. I'm sure there are some examples of it. But if you can really prove to any broadcaster or buyer of content that you've already got a following for that format, you've got format love that exists across social in a 6 to 7 minute version that could be extended to a 30 to 60, that is the direction of travel, and it's a huge opportunity that kind of I think we still need to collectively kind of get our heads together and really put forward.
And talking about the platforms then, you mentioned some buildings. You could be careful not to build on sound because algorithms can change and completely change business models. We also heard earlier on about that they're not commissioning original content anymore, or probably Pinterest is just about the only one I think that is commissioning original content out of the social platforms. How's that affected you then on your growth journey?
So we've never actually done an original commission with one of the platforms. We had conversations with Snap about their Snap Originals program. We've had conversations with YouTube about YouTube Originals, so it's not had a negative kind of financial impact. Would I have loved to have done one? Of course, absolutely. But actually, I think it's underestimated about the level and scale of revenue you can drive through these platforms. So whether it's Snapchat, Facebook or YouTube. You know, an example, we could post one of our episodes, 49 Looks, which is our beauty and lifestyle channel, female-centric, on our Snapchat show and generate $60,000 in revenue from that one episode. And because of our video economics and kind of the roots of being cost-effective, we're looking at kind of like 95, 97% margins on some of that stuff. So the art of possible is definitely there. I think it's getting more difficult and kind of the space is getting more polluted, and I think we had a level of early entrant advantage for sure, so which is kind of why that diversification across our business is key. But we always wanted to create a model that wasn't dependent on a one commissioner deciding if our content was good enough or not. We're really, the audience is our commissioners, and if you can get that scale there, it can drive significant revenue as well.
It seems like we're reading almost every week that Meta has let 20,000 people go, and a lot of these, other social platforms are, contracting at the moment. There's a cost of living crisis, there's an advertising downturn. Is that affecting you in any way?
No, of course. I think in 2021 we had our best year ever in terms of our financial performance as a business. I think we were all riding that wave of COVID, more people were viewing content, etc., and kind of the advertising market was coming back to life and really, really buoyant. Moving into 22 and now into 23, we have had to look at, okay, how do we kind of steady ship a little bit here? Because it's not that our volumes are decreasing, but your CPMs and the level of monetization you may be getting back. And also sometimes brands' appetite to spend big, especially if it's a new channel on social, they might go back to radio or TV a little bit.
And CPM is, just to be clear, if you're not sure.
It's essentially the cost per milli, but it's actually cost per 1,000 views, which is what an advertiser, it's kind of pre-roll programmatic adverts that will be appearing in your video content. So those have slightly dipped, which has meant it's kind of impacted our margins, but we've had to kind of just make sure our production model has remained even more agile than it was before, and that we're being super cost effective with the way we produce our content.
Matt, coming to you, you're the panellist with perhaps the most traditional TV industry background, but saying that, you've always had a bit of a digital DNA. Tell us about your career journey and to what's brought you to where you are now.
A bit like you. I've been in television since I was, well, not like you, but since I was 10. So I was in a thing called the ITV Workshop when I was a kid, as a child actor. So I've been really ingrained and grown up knowing how traditional television works, and feeling like that really was my basis. So when I began my career, I'd already sort of got 10 years experience of knowing what a production manager was, what a schedule was, how it all was put together, how crews worked, how studios worked. So that sort of gave me a really good bedrock at the beginning of my career. And then I actually decided to take, instead of going through the usual route of runner to researcher, AP, etc. up the ladder, I decided to go and learn some different skills. So I went off and worked in sort of all sorts of really odd jobs. I made infomercials, but I managed to get my first directing job at 23, and that was kind of what I wanted to do. And then I moved into live. I did a number of those sort of digital revenue generating channels, whether it was a bit of shopping, TV, or whether it was one of those game shows like Brain Teaser or Sky Bingo or any of those kind of channels. And then I ended up landing at Endemol, having worked on a few of their other shows, Big Brother, Shattered, and so on, reality directing and doing that kind of thing. And then they approached me and said, because you've got this sort of weird skill set, would you consider launching Gala Bingo's TV channel? Which I did, and I ran for 2.5 years. That's when I became obsessed with, it was Red Button was how you would pay for your bingo tickets and how you play along and win money. I got really obsessed with how we could convert an 8-hour live show a night into sales and get that engagement back through a TV set. And I built my own analytics system, my own Excel spreadsheet that would tell me on a game by game, we play 80 games a night, what would happen in the tape. So the next day as the exec, I could go back, look at what happened on that hour and see why we dipped or why we spiked. And then 2008, 2009, I decided to take a sabbatical. And when I came back, Endemol had lost the contract on Gala TV, but probably good for me because at that point I was known as the world's best bingo producer. And I was saying to someone yesterday at work that I've spent 10 years getting away from that. So I came back, and actually 2009 was when Facebook was starting to become a thing and being used for building brand pages. I decided to set up a business, and I did that for 18 months. And I built some bingo pages for brands and for some TV shows, and really learned how to work my producer skill set, create content, and how to build audiences online. Then Peter Cowley, who's my business partner, he was the managing director of digital media at Endemol for years, and was really good at exploiting things like Deal or No Deal and Big Brother and all those kind of things. We got together and decided to form a business that would be a sort of a modern hybrid of television and social digital that would be sort of future facing with diverse revenue streams, so that in the future, when linear started to die, we would have this business that could approach content and have all that sort of modern day skill set that I think you need to survive now. We spent about 7 years not making very much money because the industry wasn't ready for us, but we did some really interesting things. We built lots of social media platforms for Sony. Then we started bringing our TV skill set back in, and we span off Made in Chelsea for Channel 4 for 4 years. A live chat show that was live on channel4.com. Used to do about 50,000 viewers on a Monday night after E4, which is pretty good compared to, you wouldn't get that now. We then built Jamie Oliver's Food Tube and helped him do that for about 3 years. Started working with lots of different creators in the space and agencies. And then maybe sort of 2015, All 4, as it launched, decided to start commissioning originals. And we decided to go back into making original content again. And we produced a few different short form series. And off the back of that, I got approached by Dom Jolly, and we brought Trigger Happy back. And we brought Trigger Happy back for 2 seasons in sort of a mid-form, 12-minute episodes for All 4. But then we also did these TV specials as well, which sort of brought the brand back. Did extremely well, did 57 million views across social and digital as a series. Did 2 seasons, both sponsored by Foster's. So the money was there, the audience was there. And off the back of that, then we really started to sort of make sense of our business model. And the stand-up sketch show was born. The stand-up sketch show had started life as a series of just 4 little shorts that we'd made for Joe Lycett to promote his Christmas DVD in 2016. And it was 2 years later. I tried selling it at the time as called Not Live at the Apollo to the BBC, because I thought it'd be a good way of taking all the Live at the Apollo archive and doing this new new format. 2 years later, I was at ITV, and I was with Saskia. He was the head of comedy then, and we'd finished the hour talking, and she said, "So I'm just looking for something that I've never seen before." And I just went, "Oh, hang on a minute," and I got my phone out, which is sort of something that you wouldn't have done in the old days. Played her this 3-minute clip, and if anyone knows Saskia, she just sort of looked at it like she was totally bored, and then afterwards just said, "I haven't seen anything like that in the last 3 years. It's brilliant." And the next day we had a commission. We're now in series 5 of the stand-up sketch show, and it sells all around the world, both format and tape. We've made lots of other TV shows. That's the sort of TV side, but then we also run 3 other studios. One, which is a rather big part of our business, is we run a podcast network. I think to date we've done over 100 million downloads. We have some of the biggest titles in the UK, from Private Parts to Secret 2 to Homo Sapiens. We have a multi-camera studio of our own that both creates our own but also does commission pods, and also we hire out to others. That particular studio is rapidly growing, does 7 figures, makes 35% profit, which we can reinvest into other social channels. So we also do I'm Whole, which is a mental health foundation we founded with Jordan Stevens from Rizzle Kicks in 2016, which has done some incredible things, including did The Whole Truth, the TV show for Channel 4, did Comedy Against Living Miserably for Dave, but has created some campaigns that have reached 50 countries around the world. We launched Digital Detox Day, which saw Piccadilly Circus switch off for its mental health and reach a billion views across all social platforms. And then we also, as you said, we have The Lion Whisperer, which has been running for about 6-7 years now, which started as a content ID project, but then eventually turned into original content.
You talked earlier on about podcasts, TV, digital. I mean, how does that, same question to you, how does that play out in terms of revenue percentage across the business?
You said before we have this USP at Spirit that we create content with Spirit in order to sort of drive change in the world, and we have that sort of purpose behind what we do. But our North Star as a business is creating a production company that is the biggest exploiter of IP. So we option something, or we create the IP through our development team. It comes into the factory, and then we try and monetize that in as many different ways as possible. So currently, he doesn't know this yet, but we are going to be talking about the rights of how I take, for example, we've just produced a series for Sasha's team, which is a true crime series called Outsmarting, which is about people that have outsmarted serial killers or they're rapists, or, you know, it's quite dark. But how do we carve out the audio rights so we can do the podcast? And we've already had interest through the press release from distribution companies to do the long form. In terms of our revenue splits, currently we're 50-50 in terms of digital and television, although this year, because we've had quite a few wins in the TV side, that will probably skew quite a bit bigger for this particular year. But the ambition is to be 50-50.
But it's basically putting IP right in the middle of this sort of content ecosystem so it can work multi-platform and ultimately up to TV and maybe cinema.
We're genre agnostic, which is quite unusual. And I think in this modern time, you have to have diversified revenue streams because everything's changing so much, and it's not always that easy to just jump on board a streamer. And if you're not one of the big regular suppliers to the major broadcasters, then that's a difficulty. And the revenues, the ad revenues down right now at the moment in advertising across social platforms. So you've really got to sort of think, you know, branded content we do well in. Branded content's one of those things that we're an IP business really. You sell your business off being a branded content business, you sell the value of your contracts, you don't sell the value of your IP. So for us, having that diverse revenue streams and trying to control it all under one roof, you know, the North Star, and we call it joining the dots. It's kind of how do you pull in an idea and work across and bring in the development, the creatives across those different 4 studios that we have, and kind of go, what's the pod version of this? What's the doc? What's the drama? And then see if you can monetize it in that way. We're just starting to do this, but we're a sort of a 5-man development team. Predominantly focused on television, because that's the sort of the traditional art form, but does develop for our pods when they come along, and you know, when we get a briefing from a brand, we'll certainly jump on that as well. But what we're starting to do is do monthly all-team brainstorms, because we've got this real incredible bunch of talented young people that have different opinions, different skill sets, different backgrounds. You know, you just don't know where the next big idea is going to come from. And the fact that the idea could start as a pod or start as a TV show doesn't really matter, does it? It's the idea that it might be something that someone has thought about in a world that doesn't feel necessarily traditional to me, but will spark something brilliant that I could then maybe go and sell as a TV format.
The Lion Whisperer is, you know, really a big digital success story. Tell us how that evolved and how you got into essentially, you know, a wildlife YouTube channel.
Well, funny enough, I was doing a talk like this, and his agent was in the audience and came up to me afterwards and said, and this was probably 7 years ago, and she said, I represent this guy who's like really big on the internet, but everybody has just taken his videos and his content, and it's just all over the shop, and he's not making any money from it. So I just gave it to Peter, who's my business partner, who's the more digital minded in the business. But Peter's had the right sense to go at the time, let's do a content ID play here. Let's take this and let's go and get control back of all your assets. Let's stop anyone else monetizing, or if they do, get the revenues from them. And that's how it began. And then very, very quickly, we saw that we were bringing in quite a lot of revenue, literally just off all the stuff that had been ripped and that was being shared everywhere else. And then I came on board because I'm more excited about making original things. And I said, well, why don't we, you know, he's got this potential deal with GoPro, which was on the table. Why don't we just get him to self-shoot? We can't be with him with the lions because this is the guy that sort of has the magic of not being killed whilst being with all the lions. And his thing is to save the plight of lions in the world. Why don't we get him all the gadgets? And we did. They gave him a drone, which he learned to fly. Actually, he is a pilot. So he flies a small plane himself. So that was kind of, so we already had that skill set. We then got him one of those monkey tail things, which is like, we turned him into a one-man multicam. It's a bit like a one-man band for TV. And the quality was brilliant because the light is so amazing in South Africa that even on the GoPro Hero 2, it looked incredible. And he was able to go out with chest cams, head cams, big reverse cam and all that kind of, and a drone, and just shoot these incredible videos. And the very first one that we decided to produce and go out today has done something like 58 million views, which is great.
Taff, coming to you. Sorry to keep you waiting. First of all, tell us about Wall of Entertainment and the makeup of the business and how it's developed.
So Wall of Ent started about 10 years ago with two of my business partners, and a very close friend of theirs called Dee started a web series called Man Them on the Wall. So from Man Them on the Wall, the guys made it all the way to TV, which are part of Youngers. And obviously as a young content creator, your dream is to be on the big screen. And once you get there, you kind of get a bit naive. You know, you believe your life is done and you've made it and everything else is great. But at that point, we then realized that actually there's a lot of heartbreaks that happen in that world. And you never really prepared for this. And these guys were like, in Passenger were like 18, 19 at the time. So when Man Them on the Wall was kicking off and stuff, so then I came on board to actually transform what was built during that Man Them on the Wall journey into becoming a legitimate business. And that's what Wall of Comedy was birthed. And what Wall of Comedy essentially was, we took inspiration from guys like Jamal Edwards, guys like Posty, guys like Rashid that were doing different platforms. We had all these music platforms around, but there wasn't really a platform that was made for content creators, specifically people that we genuinely thought were just funny, and we'd bring that over. So that's when Wall of Comedy was birthed, and then we started going, okay, we've got this platform that we've built for Man Them on the Wall, so people that are quite familiar to that style of content, and we've got a whole heap of like content creators that are coming underneath the guys that don't know how to go about it, don't know where to go about it, because the industry is still quite young for us. And it was still quite new, and it was an untapped market. So that's when Wall of Comedy was birthed, and then first thing that we went into was into talent development. That was kind of like our first spot. And then we used to monetize on Facebook. So what we'll do is we'll get the monetization from Facebook, reinvest that into like formats that will be like short form, long form, then start reinvesting that into YouTube. So the essence of our business was built on creating engaging digital formats and making sure that whether we give you an episode, whether it's 2 minutes, 7 minutes, 12 minutes, 40 minutes, it just feels as short as 30 seconds. So that's kind of what's been our ethos and our entertainment and engagement from that. We then got really obsessed with making sure that the content was great. So that's when Wall of Productions was birthed. And our first Wall of Productions, as I said, for production company project that we did was Shower Story, which, after I don't know how many trips I did to all the broadcasters and been told it's niche and it doesn't work, and this is more like a what if you get like a Stormzy on it, what if you get a Dave on it, like all of those stories that you get. And then we did Shower Story, pushed it out, then off the back of that, we realized that, okay, we've got a legitimate production company here. Then the Facebook revenue stopped for a bit when Facebook Watch was kind of in the middle. So we really then focused on building a legitimate production company and talent management agency at the time. So we've got our hands in pretty much most of the biggest content creators that you have now, and also most of the biggest formats that you have online. We kind of do that. And then over the years, we've kind of developed that reputation of creating engaging digital first content. Now we've got a lot of great working relationship with a lot of brands. And if you see 4.0, it's been ever since they started, our best friend since. And that's been a lifesaver for us, because now we can go bigger. Because some brands don't really believe in the big ideas at first. Yeah. But once they see it working, they're like, oh, how can we? And then one area that we've then tapped into that's really been lucrative for us is working alongside brands to tap into. Because I used to be an accountant before.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
because out of all the rest of the panelists, you've come from, well, you don't come from a TV industry.
I come from a TV watcher. Yeah, that's my TV background. I used to watch a lot of Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, Johnny Bravo, all of that. That was me. That's
not TV.
So that was my TV experience, and maybe Christmas, EastEnders, maybe. Okay. That was it.
Your accountancy background.
Yeah.
Does that help you now monetize content? Because now it's about monetizing content in 10 different places, rather than just waiting for one commissioner to give you, one commission and maybe the distribution income from the distribution company. You're looking at maybe 10 different revenue streams for every piece of content there.
100%. So similar to you guys, like Snap has been quite successful for us. Facebook, YouTube, TikTok is starting to do okay-ish. It's slightly atrocious, but it's starting to do okay-ish. And then also, obviously, because we started off on social, we really understand the art of organically pushing this content. We barely pay for any, actually, on all the stuff we've done, we've never put any paid spend behind it. Especially the big shows, we've never put any paid spend behind it. But we've got like the relationship with all the other different platforms because we kind of came up together with them. So we kind of have a strategy that says, okay, cool, from delivery, this is what was going to go, and this will work on Facebook, this will work on YouTube, this will work on this platform, this will work on that platform. But as a back of that, another thing that we realize is a lot of kind of brands kind of work like commissioners to us. So when I approach a brand, it's the same way as approaching a commissioner, because what you need to do with the commissioner, you need to have a strong why on the content that you're doing. And one thing that we really tapped into, obviously, because of my background, was a thing called trade marketing, which was quite successful for us in a lot of brands that we work with. So what trade marketing is, if you have a brand like, let's say Game, I'll use Game because I used to work there, so they can't come after me. So, you brand like Game sells Sony products and they sell Xbox products, they sell Activision products and all of that stuff. You then convince Game to do a show around FIFA and get EA to sponsor that, because actually it's EA that's making the most money out of all three of us. So you then create a strategy with that brand that allows them to go to their supplier and then also become a distributor of choice to those suppliers, because not only are they selling, they're also contributing to the growth of the supplier. So you kind of get that ecosystem to work, then you kind of then become the go-to with all the brands, because you're not just saying, I can get you 1 million views. You're going, I can get you 1 million views, but I can get EA to be your favorite. I can get you to be EA's favorite person and get them to pay you more money. So you actually don't have to sell FIFA games. You can just be paid to sell FIFA games, if that makes sense.
So you've just been commissioned by Channel 4.0 for something. Tell us about that.
We've got a show called Tapped Out that's coming very, very soon. It's very fresh, very different. We've always kind of wanted to challenge the status quo. That has been kind of like our main, when it comes to developing formats, is what is it changing and what is it challenging from a social perspective. And this is probably, I believe, is the first ever all-female gang show where you get 4 girls that were let loose to go terrorize the streets. So that is kind of how I can say it for now. But yeah, that's the latest one that's been announced, and we're looking forward. I can't wait for you guys to see it. It's probably I'm bidding and I'm praying and I'm hoping that this actually makes it to big screen, because I think it deserves the time, and it's something really fresh and something very unique that celebrates the growth of the female talent that we're seeing in this country.
I'll come to Brandon now. You've been making some moves into creating your own formatted shows. We saw lots of all entertainment formats up there. Tell us about your own formatted interview show and why you've gone down that route.
Yeah, so I think the next big thing within this creator space is everyone attaching themselves to IPs and building formats. When I speak to other creators, the biggest problem day to day they seem to have outside of monetization is trying to work out what that next video that they create is. Every time a creator makes a video, they're essentially trying to reinvent the wheel and try and come up with a brand new idea from scratch over and over again. Yet what you guys in TV have done so incredibly is developing these formats. You prime your audience with exactly what the content is going to be about, so people know what they're tuning in for, and then it's the content inside of that then changes. So I think we're going to continue to see that be the next thing that's like really takes off within social, and that's great for you guys because that's the specific area that you guys are killing better than anyone. So that's the areas that everyone here should be like tripling down on. So as a content creator, that's where I'm focusing a lot of my energy. And we've launched our own IP called This Interview Will Self-Destruct. It's a show where after every episode, the entire interview self-destructs in the name. And you get your audiences tuning in for 2 different reasons. A, we interview really fun big names. We've had Tom Holland on, Tyson Fury, Jake Gyllenhaal. And then the second reason is at the end of every interview, we completely demolish and destroy the set in front of the celebrity whilst they're sitting there. So whilst we had H on the show, we had 2 WWE wrestlers come in and start a choreographed fight, and one of them picked one of the guys up and threw them into the back of the set, and the entire set fell over. With Jake Gyllenhaal, we had gallons and gallons, I don't even know the exact number, but a humongous tub of goo in the back of the set that burst open and started pouring out at the end of the interview. So it just creates something a bit more exciting and a little bit different, a bit more outside the box than a traditional interview. And luckily, because of the numbers that we're pulling in on the social front, we're able to get access to such incredible talent. We shot a pilot episode with Tom Holland, and then by the time we'd re-optimized the content in a million different ways, we hit something like 180 million views. That means we had 15 minutes with Tom Holland, and in return, we got 180 million views. Now, that was done as a piece of promotional content for Uncharted. Overall, they got the entire Uncharted PR campaign got 400 million views.
That's a video game, isn't it, Uncharted?
Yeah, which they've turned into a film.
Yeah.
Collectively, it got 400 million views, and of that 400, we were 180 million of them, which is insane. So it's a great partnership for both brands and exhibitors and studios, like Sony on that occasion, and for people like us, where we can prove that we can get such incredible results if we get given the right talent. Now, the secret sauce, how do we get 180 million views on a branded piece of content with these celebs? Unfortunately, it's not enough to just rely on the big social asset that we create. You know, you create this great long-form piece of content and you think, great, you know, job done, on to the next one. Within social is a completely different landscape. After you've made that long-form social asset, you then need to re-optimize it in as many different ways to as many different specific platforms as possible, and understand each of the platforms individually for what works and what doesn't, so you can re-edit it, rewrite the copy so it suits the style of it. So overall, for that 180 million views, I believe we released something like 30 to 40 pieces of content that we actually made. So off of that 15-minute interview, we then produced 30 to about 35 assets individually. That was then pushed all over the internet. And just because we understood how we needed to break it down for each individual platform, that's how we had that big mega viral success, which then means we can carry on going into the rooms with the big studios and saying, hey, give us your talent. We want to team up with you guys because we can prove these massive social numbers.
All right, you've got some very busy editors, I think.
Oh, very busy. Yeah. But it's become such a natural part of the pipeline now that we know once the main asset's done, we're about 50% way through the process.
Melissa, coming back to formats, so you own and operate 6, I think, distinct channels. So you're a broadcaster, you're a social broadcaster.
Yeah.
How many distinct show brands do you need per channel, and how many formats are you working across all of those six channels?
Yeah, I don't think there's like a specific number that we work towards or look for. Our content model is kind of blended, so Hygiene, Hub, Hero, where we get into the format space, we usually classify that as Hero. So we have an always-on content feed that goes through the channels, which will be kind of multiple videos a day. We probably publish over 1,000 videos a month. And then when you get up to the Hero formats, we have what we call a waterfall content strategy, where similar to you guys, it starts out as one asset produced platform agnostic, and then we cut for the different platforms. We're definitely growing and kind of changing the balance from less hygiene to more Hero formats. I think that's where the platforms are moving and where the market is moving as well. And I think to your point about knowing how to edit per platform, running a business, we kind of very much started out in that way, and it was kind of in a lot of people's heads. And a challenge we kind of put to ourselves a few years ago is, how do you democratize that level of information and insight? How is that scalable in a business? So we built a platform called Discover IQ, where every single video that we upload across every channel on every platform, we put a range of meta tags in. So is the thumbnail orange, green, blue? Are we presenting it horizontal or vertical? Is it short, mid, long form? And we say long form, but social long form, over 10 minutes. Who's the person that's starring in the video? What do we say is the emotional reason to watch? Is it an educational piece of content? Is it to entertain? Is it comedy? We do all of those tags front end our side, and then we pull it out and overlay it with the performance trends. So if we're getting kind of over 500 million views a month, you've got a tremendous amount of scale. and you can start to ascertain, okay, if we use an orange thumbnail on this platform, we're getting a 2 times higher view through rate, or our average watch time is 5 times higher on this Facebook channel when it's emotional content. So you start to really understand your audience, because also this changes. This changes all the time. What we knew a month ago will be different in the next month as the platforms change. So that's kind of how we cut and approach our formats and make sure we get as many hits and as few misses across the platforms as possible.
I'm going to ask about YouTube Shorts. And the short form content has become shorter and shorter and shorter over the last year or so. And it's recently YouTube started to monetize that, or offer creators monetization for this new, very short form content. How's it working for you? Each one in a line. Going to start with you, Melissa.
Great for volume. YouTube is, I've always seen it as kind of the hardest platform to crack and scale really quickly. The quality of content needed and the investment in content was way higher than it was on the other platforms. And our business kind of had to grow to get to that level of funding to produce that level of content. So in terms of being able to generate views, it's fantastic. Monetization, not great yet. However, if there's going to be any kind of platform entity with a sales team that's able to kind of turn that into a better revenue stream, I believe kind of Google and YouTube are that business to do it.
Okay. How about you, Tim?
I think for us it's more for distribution purposes, because we take advantage of it to drive back to the hero format, and then get the monetization of the hero format. So we use it as a traffic mechanism.
So it's like a trailer, essentially,
Yeah, absolutely.
For your main.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way we even cut the way we cut the shorts are cut to that point.
Okay.
So similar to what Snap does. So Snap you need to get straight into the action. But YouTube Shorts you need to really build that anticipation. So that's what we really use it for on our side.
Okay. Brandon?
I'm somewhere in between those two answers. So I've got, as a studio, we've got some YouTube channels that are there. The shorts pillar of it is just there to promote the long form content, which is our IP show. But then we've got other channels, specifically the Brand and B channel, where we use shorts as a way to just absolutely get incredible growth on that channel from using the shorts feature. As a studio, we're doing something like 300 million YouTube Shorts views a month. That's just off one platform across the YouTube channels that we run. Whereas on any other platform, I'd say we're probably doing about a third. So right now, I'd say YouTube Shorts is the hottest platform to see quick, great growth. And if you can partner up with a brand, then suddenly you can charge a CPM based off of those views.
Okay. And Matt?
So in the last 4 months, we've made about £1 million through YouTube Shorts. No, I'm joking.
I was going to say, right, everybody's going up to
no, I mean, yeah, it's still early days, isn't it? It's still early days. It is helping. It's helping with subs and bringing new audiences to the channels, but we're not making really much yet.
Brand funded. Then that was something. There was the last panel we talked about really quickly. How do you get brand funded work? So if you don't have any relationships with brand manager or a media agency, how do brands, how are they investing into content? Really quick question for each of you, please, starting with you, Matt.
We don't go out to get branded content, it comes to us. It's always been incoming. But I think it's because we're known for having that sort of reputation of being a traditional business plus the social bit, then there's a trust, which I think is changing a lot now anyway. But we partner with, like you said, with agencies. We do go, sometimes if we've got a really great idea, because of the nature of our business, we do so many different things. Sometimes we're so passionate about the idea and a brand feels the right fit, we will go straight to that brand. And I've got no problems with going direct. I'd rather go direct, to be honest. Cut the media agencies out because they just create hell for you.
Get in the way. Okay. How about you, Brandon?
So I'm very lucky to be managed by Connect Management in the audience, Josh. So they bring in all of our branded side. So they have a dedicated team of people basically on the phones, on emails, constantly back and forth with an incredible collection of clients. And off the back of that, we've developed some incredible relationships. And I'd say most of our branded work are retained clients where we do one job with them and we smash the results out of the park, and off the back of doing that one collaboration, suddenly you find yourself locked into these year-long contracts of going, great, you guys are now running all of our media campaigns.
Right, okay. Pixar, you've got access to Disney's, the choice, I think, of any Disney back catalogue, Pixar animation to work with, didn't you? That was That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that was the dream collaboration. Pixar, like, we trust you guys, do whatever you want to do. We'll fund whatever you need. Like, go and have fun. And off the back of that, our first collaboration with them, we got the highest piece of performing content on their pages of all time, which was just like a massive win for us. And all of us as a team, being big Disney and Pixar fans, gave us that warm butterflies feelings in the belly.
Yeah. Taf, we saw Netflix, a couple of commissions on Netflix on there, and we could talk, I'm sure, about that. But talking about branded, then we saw JBL, we saw Spotify, we saw some others on your clip. How do you work with brands, and how does that branded work come to you?
So it's two ways. Part of it is we find a brand that aligns with what we're trying to do. So, and then kind of answer the question that the brand is doing and answer that through content. So, for example, for Asylum, say to us, look, they want to be a cool brand that also sells gear, and they also want to increase their London presence. We said, how best not to? You've come to the right house. Then we kind of built the whole platform with them to get to where we are now. And then with people at Netflix, it's just saying, look, this is the world that, these are the guys that love the stuff that you're doing, and we've got our own version. Like, if you see what the Netflix show is, it's our own interpretation of the shows that are already on Netflix, and this is how we would do it if it was in our world. So we've got that side of things as well. But mostly, because we have a strong talent part of the business as well, you're naturally going to get incoming from talent, where the brands are coming in to try to collaborate with certain individuals. We are very protective of that talent, so therefore we scrutinize the creative. And during the process of scrutinizing the creative, they then turn around and go, why don't you just do it? And then the talent trusts us, the talent want to work with us because they know what type of quality they're going to get. So then you end up recruiting brands with that way as well.
And finally, Melissa.
I haven't got a very sexy answer. We hired a sales team. So we have about 10 people that work on sales. About 50% of our commercial revenue comes from the media agencies and 50 client direct. So loads of wines, loads of dinners, and load of company card spend, basically. But yeah, that's kind of how we do it.
All right, fantastic. So just before we wrap up, guys, TellyCast and K7 Media have created a report into the UK creator economy. It's free. It's downloadable from tellycast.com/downloads. It's going to be coming on the member newsletter to PACT, so you'll be able to click on it from there and have a read. It's a really good piece of work, completely free. Thank you very much indeed to our panel. Been fantastic chatting to you all, and see you in the bar.
Well, that's all for this week's show. As always, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. As mentioned in the recording, we've teamed up with K7 Media to bring you Like and Subscribe, an exclusive free 23-page report on the UK creator economy. You can download it for free now at tellycast.com/downloads. That's tellycast.com/downloads. TellyCast was edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in London. We'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe.